Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatuh. I was recently watching dervishes whirl, and we've talked about this in the past, but just to refresh recollection, the dervishes wear hats that are like cones that represent tombstones when they whirl. And they have one hand to the heavens and one hand to the earth to be like a pole, so that that which comes from the heaven will come to the earth. And they have their head tilted to the side so that their mind is out of the way when this transmission comes from the heavens to the earth. So it is a direct heart transmission and goes through the heart, not through the head. And this is an important understanding in order to know reality. Love is at the core of reality. Allah is said to be love. Allah created us out of His love. But the mind is not capable of understanding Allah's qualities, because Allah's qualities are without form. Allah's qualities are without elemental substance. And the mind, which is made of the elements, deals with the elements. And that which is beyond the elemental sphere is beyond the mind. So it needs to be understood by all of us that in order to make a real connection with truth and reality, which has no substantive form, which is not elemental, we have to be able to connect in a non-elemental way. And the only way that we can connect in a non-elemental way is to bypass the mind in this understanding. Now, that means a non-involvement in the world and an involvement in the qualities of Allah, an involvement only in mercy and compassion and grace and love. And the interesting thing about the dervishes, and if you have an opportunity, you should take a look at dervishes whirling, and they're all over the internet, on YouTube, especially with Rumi poems. But think about the meditation that's going on here. Here you have a man or a woman who's standing and whirling, trying to put his mind out of the way. They are totally involved in imitating the form of everything that's in the universe. They are the planets. They are the atoms. They are all of the building blocks of the elemental forms. Yet they are totally disconnected. As they whirl, they are without connection to the world, even though they are within the world, and even though their very act of whirling is in unity with the world and everything else in creation, there is no pushing or pulling of the elemental fields. There's no there's no trying to make things go in any particular way or order. There's a total submission to the way things are and a total submission to the nature of the universe and the constant movement that goes on in the universe in a circular pattern. And we can see this circular pattern if we study astronomy and if we study the atoms. This is how the elemental universe works. And they fit in with that, yet remove themselves from acting within it in a conscious way. They are removing themselves consciously from acting in the world while they're whirling. I think that you could whirl while you're sitting still. Close your eyes and whirl. Do it while watching the whirling first, and then imagine it. It's an extraordinary release from the everyday life that we lead and our involvement with everything that's elemental. Understanding that we need to remove ourselves from the elemental is an incredibly important phase in our progression. If we are to move within the various spheres of existence, if we are to move from one place to another while still in our chairs, we need to understand that there are forces that are greater than elemental forces, and there are even forces within the elemental that we don't understand. Recently, I had an opportunity to come into contact with a letter that Albert Einstein wrote to his daughter. And he wrote it to her in 1938. And he told her that she shouldn't release it to the world until she thought the world was ready for it. And in 1980, she released these letters. Now, I don't know if they're widely known or not. I just ran into it yesterday. And in it, he tells her that he believes that love is the only thing that can cure the world. And he talks about the difference between his theory, E equals MC squared, and the theory of love that can actually resolve situations in the world. And even though he doesn't say it directly, what he's saying, what he's implying is that E equals MC squared is an understanding of energy and mass and things that are elemental and can be weighed and that man can control, and that through the mind, man has been able to control these elements to prove this theorem and to have reaction from the theorem. He proposed a theory for curing the world. And he made this theory, E, he called the energy to heal the world equals love times the speed of light squared. So he understood that his understanding of physics isn't what's going to heal the world. He also understood that what was going to heal the world was not in the elemental phase of things. It was beyond chemical, physical understanding. It was in the non-elemental. And he further understood that man can't manipulate that. Love can't be manipulated. Love is what it is. And no matter how you may try to turn it, or how you may try to change it or alter it, you can't. Love is eternal, and it's eternal in the state that it is. And no matter what mind tricks you may apply to it, no matter what imaginations you may give to it, if it's pure and if it's real, it will be love. And you have a choice of either to connect with it or be separate from it. And this is also an understanding that we all know, that in order to find love, it's not something that can be poured on us. It's something that we have to internalize, and it comes out from the inside of us. So how is it that love can come into being and help alter existence? How is it that love can bring about peace in the world? How is it that love can conquer all of the difficulties, all of the hatred, all of the wars that exist? And the reality is that nobody else can do this except you. Each one of us has to go internally and produce love within ourselves. And if enough love can be produced, it will overwhelm everything else. But it's done one person at a time. You can't crank out love. You can't mass produce love. You can't package love. Love comes from every individual, and it comes into the outer being of this world through each of us. And when each of us are in this state, it becomes very powerful and very strong, and is capable of altering things. When I was in the presence of my sheikh, my teacher, the love that came from him was palpable. You could feel it. You could sense it. It was in the air. The air was thick with it. And when you stepped into it, you were transformed because of what was going on inside of him. And by attuning yourself to him, you could have that love created within you. So what each of us needs to do is to attune ourselves to our best understanding of what love is, where love comes from, and how love acts in the world. And if we need help in that understanding, understand that God is love. Everything that he has done on our behalf is love. And this is a divine love. It's a love that doesn't have lust. It's a love that isn't about what can be done for the body that I walk around in. It's a love that is universal and is beyond form. And for us to be able to integrate with that love, we have to go beyond our imagination. beyond beyond our own ideas and surrender to the higher transcendent will that exists within the universe. Something like the dervishes do when they whirl. They're surrendered to whatever comes through them. They have given up at that moment from trying to manipulate the elemental world, and they have surrendered to just becoming part of the flow of all of creation. They become the flow. E equals mc squared, as Einstein put it, is a manipulation of energy and mass. Love is a transcendence beyond energy and mass. Love is a transcendence beyond the elemental understanding of things. Love is a transcendence beyond the mind and the mind's influence. Love is a transcendence that isn't connected to the elemental world, although it can affect the elemental world. Love affects everything, but isn't affected by anything because it's divine and it's immortal. It is without impurities. It is without the ability to be decreased because it is part of that which is Allah. We need to be able to find that kind of love and that kind of understanding. And we need to know that that comes from beyond the mind. In dealing with our mind, we deal with all of the difficulties that the mind has. And if you watch the mind, and in order to move forward, we have to watch our own mind. We have to watch our thought patterns. We have to watch where they go and how they go. And after a while, we will learn that they don't stop. It is a continuum, and it's a critical continuum. We're constantly mulling over things and mulling over things and mulling over things. And we can't get to the point of final resolution. If we ever do resolve a situation, there's a new situation that comes up that needs resolution. So in playing with the mind, it's a never-ending, ongoing, constant series of critiques, conundrums, difficulties, and solutions to conundrums. There's the story of a man who asked the sheikh if he could have control over the jinns, or at least get to know a jinn. And the sheikh said to him, "You're not ready." And he said, "But I think I am." And he said, "Well, I'll let you try." And the jinn came before him, and he directed the jinn to do something, and the jinn did it and came back and said, "Now give me something else to do." And he directed the jinn, and the jinn came back immediately and said, "Now give me something else to do." And this happened over and over and over and over. And the dervish ran out of things to tell the jinn to do. And the jinn became angry, and the dervish felt that his life was in danger because he couldn't give the jinn work to do. So the jinn ran to his sheikh and said, "I can't give the jinn things to do, and he's becoming angry. I think he'll kill me." He said, he said, "Go outside. There's a small dog there with a curly tail. Tell him to uncurl the tail." And the jinn uncurled the tail, and the tail curled back up. And the jinn uncurled the tail, and the tail curled back up. And the jinn uncurled the tail, and the tail curled back up. And the jinn was kept busy forever trying to uncurl the tail. The mind is like that. In dealing with the mind, it's like trying to uncurl the tail of a dog with a curly tail. It doesn't uncurl. It doesn't stop. So what's the solution? Stop playing with the tail. Stop playing with the mind, or at the very least, release yourself from this constant interaction with the mind. Free yourself and surrender yourself to reality and to what's going on. Surrender yourself to mercy and compassion and kindness and love. And don't give thought to the self. The predominant thought patterns that the mind has have to do with the improvement of the body, with the raising up of the body, with gaining power for this body, with enriching this self. This is the work the mind does. This is the works that the nefs, the lower self, do. They're here as animal qualities that try to maintain and sustain the animal nature. They consider that animal nature the most important thing there is, and they do everything they can to keep it functioning and important. Animals spend their lives protecting themselves, feeding themselves, and reproducing. Men do almost the same thing unless they can break through that pattern and get to a pattern of transcendence. And one of the things that happens in the pattern of transcendence is that we no longer only look at ourselves, but we begin to give externally. We have developed an understanding that other people have needs, and we are able to sacrifice our own needs on behalf of others. We are able to release ourselves from all of the pulls and ties to our own desires and needs, and we begin to try and help other people to fulfill their desires and needs, with the end result that eventually they will understand how to give up desires and needs and also develop empathy so that they can assist others. And this is the pattern that love will take in order to change the world. And again, it happens one person at a time. You can't force people into divine love. You can't force people into states of divine love. You can't twist arms and make them love. You can twist arms and make them obey ritual, but you can't make them love. And when the Quran says there is no compulsion in religion, what it means is you can't force truth into people. You can only force ritual into people. You can't force God into people, belief in God into people. You can only force ritual into people. And so what most of the world has taken as truth and as religion is performance of ritual. And performance of ritual has become the touchstone of what is orthodoxy in religion and what is religion. The reality is that you have to go quite a few steps beyond ritual to understand truth. You have to go quite a few steps beyond ritual to understand mercy, compassion, and reality. And these steps can begin in ritual, but they won't end in ritual alone. Ritual alone is not going to take you to the highest levels of transcendence. Ritual alone will not bring you to that place where you are intermingled with truth. The mind can perform ritual, and the mind can make decisions about ritual and not ritual. And one of the things that happens in the religious world is the clerics, who are in fact lawyers, are constantly arguing about how to perform ritual. What's the appropriate manner to do this? What's the appropriate manner to do this? What's the appropriate time to do this? What's the appropriate time to do that? Everything revolves around form. And as long as it revolves around form, it's not going to touch truth. Now, it can protect you from inappropriate external behavior, but it's not going to wipe clean what's going on the inside. So there is a place for ritual, but ritual is not the end of things. Ritual is the beginning of things, and we need to transcend ritual in the same way that we have to transcend our mind, because ritual and the mind are very closely connected. And the ones who are very, very much involved in ritual cannot understand a formless understanding of things. They cannot understand a world that is beyond ritual. They cannot understand a place that is beyond ritual, because they have to hold on to the form, because they're intellectual. And intellects deal with the mind. Philosophers deal with the mind. But philosophy will only take you so far, because transcendence can't be explained in worldly terms. There is a point where there are no words any longer. There is a point where words cannot describe what's going on. And that's why they whirl, because whirling is a silence without words that incorporates itself into this and surrenders itself to the flow of the universe. But it does it without words. It does it without description. It does it through an innate understanding of things. So there has to come a time when we become silent, where we no longer need to express ourselves, because the expression of reality is going on inside of us and we can feel it. There are many ways to communicate beyond words. There are many ways to communicate beyond language. We need to understand those ways to communicate. When Allah sent his messages to the prophets, they came as a resonance, and that resonance then began to take form as words. But it didn't start out as form. It started out as light and as a resonance. And for us to transcend into that state, where light and resonance exist, we have to move beyond words. We have to move beyond the mind. We have to move beyond our intellectual capacity. We have to move beyond thinking into empathy and feeling and a direct connection through our heart with reality. These are the things that we have to work on. It's interesting that one of the men in the recent past who understood the most about the physics of this material world understood that the real answers don't come from the physics of the material world, but come from the transcendent qualities that are beyond the material world, that can't be manipulated in the way that man can manipulate the elemental. Man is never going to make bombs out of love. Man is never going to start wars out of love. Man cannot create weapons out of love. But what man can do is create peace out of love, create human kindness out of love, create empathy and understanding among mankind out of love. We need to enter into knowing that and knowing the truth of that. This is the way that we will move ourselves forward and move humanity forward. Humanity will move forward in relation to the amount of love that humanity creates within the world. And it happens through one of us at a time all over the world. There are lovers everywhere. And these lovers are what sustains the world. Allah created man so that he had one of his creations that could know him and that he could know. And the mystery of Allah and man and their intermingling is the reason for this creation. And for us to fulfill our part of that, we have to release ourselves from everything that is other than this transcendent love. And if we can do that, we will become part of the solution that this world needs in order to end the difficulty and the strife and the constant battling that is going on in this world. It all starts with the tiniest bit of true love. It all starts with the tiniest bit of true kindness and compassion that is given out selflessly from each and every one of us. So we need to learn how to act selflessly. We need to learn how to become more and more selfless. We need to learn to react less from our mind and more from our heart. Our heart has a different set of standards that our mind does. And we have to get in connection with our heart to begin to develop those standards. And those standards are God's standards. And God's standards are justice and mercy and compassion and kindness and this overriding love that is so strong that it maintains all of the worlds. Ya Allah, our Father, our Creator, our Nourisher, our Sustainer. It is our intention to come to know you. It is our intention to do your will. It is our intention to act in the way that you have created us to act. It is our intention to release ourselves from all of the shackles that bind us in this world. It is our intention to release ourselves from all of the desires that cripple us and make us slaves to this world. It is our intention to release ourselves from all of the needs that we have somehow developed through the machinations of the mind that keep us attached to things that have no relevance to our true being. Allah, bring us back into relevance. Bring us back into knowing what truth is. Bring us to the place where we understand what it is that keeps us in existence. We need to understand that love that you are constantly emanating to all of us, that you are constantly emanating to the entire world, that we are constantly swimming in and surrounded by. Let us feel and understand this love, and let us be able to acknowledge that this is the most important part of existence, and this is the most important part of our life. And this is our path towards you. This is our path towards immortality. This is our path towards an eternal life. Love is that path. Love is what brings us into the truth. Love is what brings us close to you. Love is what saves us and is the only thing that can save us. So, Lord, make love open to us. Allow us to know and understand what this love is. Allow it to open our hearts and break us into empathy so that we feel every other being in this planet, and we feel them the way that you feel them, through love. And through feeling them, we will feel you and come to know you, O Lord, our Savior, our salvation, our guide, our resonance. We know that we belong to you, we come from you, and we will return to you. So we ask you to cleanse us so that we will be purified, so that we can move towards you, and we will be worthy of your friendship, and we will be worthy of your acknowledgement as one of yours. We ask to be chosen by you as one of yours, O Lord. This is our greatest intention, and we wish to become that which is wanted by you. We want to be wanted by you. We want to become that which is inclusive in your plan for humanity. We want to become among those who are considered your friends. Allow this to happen for each of us. Ameen. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.